you guys, I'm back. It's save time with Tori here. Back in the parking lot as usual. I just decided to drop a video today because I'm probably gonna be missing for the next 2 days. So you know, why not today? It's kind of raining and dreary out here. I think we got another tornado coming and whatnot. So I'm gonna try to make this quick. But the topic I got today, I got a feeling at some point, maybe not like, I don't know, it might be right off the rip, but I know as soon as this video kind of starts to circulate the internet a little bit, I already know some trolls are coming, but I'm gonna say it anyway because this is save time and Tori and I do what? I save you time from the bullshit. So therefore, I'm just gonna have to keep it 100 with you guys, and I'm just gonna have to tell it like like it ti is. So some may agree, some may not agree, but please don't get down in this comment with this bullshit. You can disagree, but let's just keep this respectful because I did have a couple of trolls on one of my other videos, and I had to, nip that in the bud. But anyway, today's video is going to be called "Why Men Date Younger Women." And to be honest with you guys, this ain't made up. These are facts, and if a man can like get down in the comments and back me up on this and not try to, brush this off and pretend like it's not real and pretend like the shit don't exist, cause it does, and it is. But the video is called "Why Men Date Younger Women." I mean, if y'all don't really feel like watching the whole video, it's plain and simple. Less baggage, because you're still young and you haven't really experienced much of life. So, you're kind of like almost like a blank canvas. You can be shaped and molded the way, however way, life treats you, So if you're like this fresh newborn baby and if you have this mother or whatever that's doting on you and showing you all this affection, and when you grow up, you're gonna grow up to be a happy person. You're gonna grow up to be like a positive expression of what you were shown. But if you grow up in the gutter and all these hardships, and you in the streets, and you gotta struggle to survive and things like that, what do you think is gonna happen? What's gonna happen is you're gonna grow up fucked up basically, and then you're probably gonna treat other people fucked up, and you're gonna just your life is gonna turn out way different than the person that I just described before that. So this blank canvas, you can pretty much paint it any way you want, so it's really up to the parents to kind of set the tone. But the point is that most women have been hurt a million times by the age of 30. Like you've been through more than one. Excuse me, y'all. This cold weather got me all screwed up. But anyway, most women done motherfuckers done dogged them out. They done been through all types of nonsense by the age of 30. Like if you ain't been through nothing by the age of 30, then you ain't living right. You living in a shelter somewhere where you're blocked off from the entire world. Because if you have been in any relationship, like more times than not, you've broken up with somebody, and you probably broke up with somebody because the shit didn't work. And if the shit didn't work, that means somebody fucked up, and it could have been you. I mean, I don't know. No, the camera didn't freeze. It could have been you, but a lot of times, a lot of people like to blame it on the other person. Now, I put them air quotes in because I don't know your situation. Like, you could have played a part in that. Yeah, I don't know, but the point is, most people, say that the other person wasn't doing their job. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that by the age of 30, you've been through a lot of tomfuckery. And so at this point, you're bitter. Like, I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. Like, you're bitter, you're mad, you're hurt, you're confused, you're like, you just like got a lot going on. And so basically, men ain't really trying to deal with all that. They don't want to, if they didn't cause the heartbreak, they don't really want to pay the price. Even though, you might look good, they might want you. Like, A lot of times they're not gonna like, they don't really want to nurse you back to health, and that's pretty sad because a lot of women, we do that as females. Like, if we meet a guy and we know, or he tells us that, you know what I'm saying, he's been through heartbreak, we're rushing to, oh, it's okay, I would never do you like that. We're rushing to try to prove and make this, beating this man's head that we're not like this other girl, and we're different. But men, they don't really have the patience for that, unfortunately. So it's like, even though we're willing to, jump through hoops to, prove our, that we're different than, the relationship that they just left, they're not. Like, they don't really have as much empathy and sympathy, and as we do. So the minute that they feel like you're like way too bitter, you're like too far gone, then they're not gonna do no work to try to fix you. Like, I have seen some cases, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's always an exception to the rule. But a lot of times, like, they're just gonna check out. If you're too hard to deal with and you're still crying about your ex, and you're still, falsely accusing them of cheating, and they're not really cheating, and it's just a lot of headache. And, a lot of women, they'll, put up with it, like, the man is like accusing them of cheating, and if they, just harboring a lot of old bitter, feelings from their last relationship, will, females will try to stick it out and try to give them some time to, work through it. But it's hardly ever the other way around. Like, you spend the rest of your life trying to heal this man, but he needs to go find God, and he needs to, do a soul searching and things like that, and that really has nothing to do with you. You need to, you know, do that shit on your own, not on my time. But anyway, you know, older women, they ain't gonna take no shit, because like I said, like, they done been through all types of heartbreak and shit in the past. So, like, they've already wisened up. They're like, I've seen this before. Hell no. Last time I, put up with this shit, I ended up, in a whole chaotic mess. No, we ain't doing that. It's like, you catch on faster. You know the game by now. So, well, you should. No, your camera didn't freeze. If you don't have no damn, if you've learned nothing from your relationships by the age of 30, then you might want to go back to the drawing board and start over, because, like, that is the prime age to where you should, like, be cutting out all the bullshit. Now, in your 20s, you get a little bit of leeway because, like I said, you're fresh out of your mama's house. You're in the real world. You're learning and things like that. So you have a little bit of room for error, to fuck up, to, get your shit together. I get it. 22, 24, shit like that. 20, even 25, shit like that. But once you start getting a little bit closer to 30, you should know better. Like, if you see some signs of some BS, and you're still sticking around at the age of 30, hoping and praying and wishing on a star, then, I mean, I hate to say it, but, like, it is what it is. You deserve what the fuck is coming to you. Well, I ain't gonna use the word deserve, but, I mean, you need to bump your head a couple more times for you to understand that, you know, a snake don't change. Like, it don't matter how much you want it to change, it's not gonna change. It is what it is. So if you saw it already before, then don't try to make up excuses for it, because a lot of times you end up looking stupid. But the point is that, the older men find the younger women because they're not, like I said, they're not bitter as much, or probably at all. Because they just got out their mama's house. They 20 years old. They in college, or they ain't got to be in college. They're out on their own. They're feeling free, and so it's like they haven't really been through a whole lot of drama yet. Now, they might have like a little high school sweetheart. They might have, ran off on the plug or some shit like that. But, like, that's puppy love right there. Like, anything before the age of like 21 is like puppy love to me. Now, there are cases where people marry their high school sweethearts, but that is so rare, and anybody can attest to that. Like, how many motherfuckers that actually married and is living happily ever after? Not just married, but living happily ever after with their high school sweetheart. Like it's not, that's not the norm. So basically, older women, they know the game. They can smell the bullshit a mile away. So they're gonna nip the shit in the bud. But the younger woman, she's still naive, and she's still got green. She's basically green and wet behind the ears. So she'll pretty much fall for anything, and that's not really a good look. And men don't want the challenge. They don't want the challenge of trying to fix a broken woman. They don't want the challenge of trying to like prove all this stuff. Like they're not like the last man. They don't want to fight for you. Basically, like they want something easy, breezy, beautiful cover girl. They want to just slide right in. They want you to believe everything they say at the first rip. They want you to do everything their way, like right away. They don't want to argue with you and go back and forth about nothing. Like they want you to listen to them. And most older women is not gonna do that. I mean, I'm sorry, but like more than likely by the age of 30, you've tried that already. You've already, ruled out certain things that don't work. So why in the hell would you like only a young woman, who's inexperienced will, fall for the okie doke. So yeah. And then this one, I mean, you can get mad at me or whatever, but I mean, let's just be honest. The younger girls, they look better. Their titties sitting up. I mean, not everybody, but for the most part, everybody know that when they're in their 20s, their chest area has way more collagen in it than it does now. So like, they don't have wrinkles and crow's feet and gray hair, and like those are the things that come with aging. You can do nothing about. Well, you can do some stuff. You can dye your hair and get some Botox or whatever the fuck people are doing nowadays. But the younger girls, they don't have to do all that. Like they already look good. You know what I'm saying? Like they're in their prime and they're living their best life. And so, you might have looked that way before, but your heydays are done. So now you got this 22-year-old girl standing here. You know what I'm saying? That's her skin is glowing and shit like that, and her waist is wasting. Once you get older, you start putting on more weight and things like that. So you might not fit the same dress that you fit 10 years ago. And so, that, men are looking at that too. Men are visual creatures. And I've said this, several times in some of my other videos. So, you can have a bomb ass heart. You can be the most generous. You can be everything. You can be all you can be in the army. But like, it's kind of hard to compete with, a girl in her early 20s. Like they just, I mean, they have youth on their side, and there's not a whole lot you can do about that. And men are so fucking shallow that it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying all men. Like, please don't come in my comments with that bullshit. But I mean, some shit is just the call of the wild. There's not a whole lot you can say or do or argue about it. But everybody loves a young, feminine, pretty face. But if you're in your late 40s and 50s, obviously you don't look exactly the way you did before. You might think you do to yourself because you don't see yourself like other people see you. So it is what it is. And then also fertility. They're looking at them like, she's still young enough to, I can start a family with her, especially if she ain't got no kids. Now that's like top tier. Like men are most definitely looking for women who are childless because they want to start a family from scratch. They don't really want to have to deal with baby daddies and like outside drama. They want you to be fresh and ready for them to plant their seed, and they don't really want no outside forces in the picture. And also, what I mean, like I said, some men can drop down in the comments, but some of them said like the put. the the coochie is tighter. You know what I'm saying? They say that, the young 22-year-old girls are like, they got the snatch, you know what I'm saying? And honestly, I don't think that's necessarily true. It may have some truth to it, but like there's women out here, in their 40s and 50s and they shit still grip. So like I guess it depends on like how many kids you done pushed out. It depends on like if you've been working your Kegel muscles. I don't motherfucking know. But the consensus says, the study says that, the women that are younger, what I'm saying, I guess they still got their walls. I don't motherfucking know. Well, the point is that, they're thinking about it in that aspect. Because, I guess when you guys are having sex and things like that, I guess it feels better to them or, so I don't really want to go too far into that because I don't want YouTube to like cut my channel off and things like that. But, that plays a factor, into why men choose younger women as well. I mean, they're just naive. That's one of the top reasons. They're just naive. Like they can mold them and shape them, the way they want. The world hasn't already drug them down and stressed them out and made them, like Charlie Brown type shit. Like they don't want no depressed ass woman. They want somebody that's still young and vibrant and excited about life because, a lot of times the men are way older, so they're going through a midlife crisis and things like that. So this younger woman helps them feel young again, and they're not bottled down by a bunch of responsibilities and kids and old hurt and trauma. So that gives them the advantage. They have they're at a impressionable age to where they can just snatch them up and just pretty much tell them what to do. And they'll, a lot of times if they ain't been trained well before they left home, they're gonna fall for, whatever the man tell them, they're gonna do it. They're gonna, pretty much this man is gonna mold this woman exactly the way he wants her because she don't really have a brain of her own yet. That's what I said. Like it takes a couple of heartbreaks and shit to get your mind right and to, become a woman. So a lot of times, the older men don't want a woman because she's gonna require more of him. She's not gonna settle for a fucking McDonald's cheeseburger and a goddamn sweet tea. Like an older woman at 30, she's thinking about owning homes. She's thinking about, like starting businesses. She's thinking about, like responsible things. A 20-some-year-old woman, she doesn't really care too much about that shit right now. She just want to ride around in the Tesla. She just want to stunt her outfit. She just want to do her hair. She just want to look good and live her life and be free. But a woman that's reaching 30, her fertility is going down. Her looks are going down. You know what I'm saying? She want her bank account to go up. She wants security, And, some of these men that don't have their shit together already, like, they don't want the challenge. They rather go find somebody that's happy with, like I said, the McDonald's cheeseburger and the basic shit. So, it's the easy way out, unfortunately. So, they want to start fresh. They don't want to take on nobody else's baggage. And that's just plain and simple. So, that's pretty much the video. They look better. They're not bitter. They're fertile. They're naive as fuck. And, it's so many advantages for them. But what they don't understand is at some point, that younger woman is going to grow into a grown woman. So at some point, she's going to wake up and realize that, well, it depends on how you're treating her. Now, if you're treating her good and shit like that, then she ain't going nowhere. But if you, went into this relationship to dominate and to, take advantage of, the fact that she's, childless and, naive and things like that, then at some point she's going to wake up and realize that you are, you know what I'm saying, like trying to control her and shit like that. And then She's gonna turn into the woman that you've been avoiding, basically the older woman that want the house and the car. At some point she's gonna want that too. She's gonna want to own a home. She's gonna want to get married. And if you ain't really trying to get married, or you ain't trying to get serious and things like that, she's gonna walk away too. At some point she's gonna wisen up as well. So while y'all running out here getting these younger women and shit like that, don't she's gonna have her day. So are you just gonna keep using her, or like are you gonna keep like playing these silly games until she's opens her eyes? Are you gonna leave her after she opens her eyes? Because at some point everybody opens. Well, I can't say everybody, because like some people don't, but most people, age comes with wisdom. Wisdom comes with age. I'm not sure which way it goes, but just be prepared for the day that she has wrinkles, and she, her, she don't look the same, and she, what I'm saying, she's gonna become that woman that you decided not to pick. So it might be cool for now, but your time gonna be up here shortly. But anyway, that's my video for today, and there's no lies told here. I don't care. I don't care. But anyway, it's raining out here, and the storm is coming, and I'm not trying to get swept up into the tornado like the Wizard of Oz. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. So I'm going home, and y'all take what I said, digest the information, and don't get caught out here slipping. This is Save Time with Tori, and I do what? I save you time from the bullshit. Okay, bye.